Michael Verney, I think we're fairly pleased with the topic we've come up with this week for the 65.com hurls or 65hurls.com series. The best creator in hurling, because we were going through the teams, and it probably gives a fair indication of why some teams are at the top level and others are chasing. Because when we went to the likes of Clare and Dublin and stuff like that, they probably had maybe one creator, or even Wexford. Whereas other teams, the teams that are at the top end, they're there for a reason because they have lads who can throw the ball around.
100%. Nearly everybody that's playing on those kind of really, really elite teams, the teams that are contesting All Ireland finals and provincial finals, they're not looking to one lad to create an attack. They're looking to several different lads. They've got loads of different points of attack. So I suppose it means that if you're trying to shut down, if you're just say, for example, Dublin, if you're trying to shut down Dublin scoring, one of the things you might try and do is try and shut down the ball that is ending up in Sean Moran's hands. Because when we went down through the list, we kind of struggled maybe to find any other creators outside of him. Whereas at the really, really elite teams, you go down through the likes of Tipp, the likes of Limerick, and even Kilkenny to maybe a lesser extent, you're looking at a good handful of lads that can create attacks, that can kind of make things happen. And I think there's a kind of a glaring disparity between the really upper echelon teams and the ones underneath them here. The ones up the top have loads of people that can do, things that can kind of create something out of nothing, whereas a lot of the other kind of lower down teams maybe don't.
But I wonder what the reason for it is. Is it because you lack the players who have the hurling ability to drive a ball exactly where it needs to go from 40, 50, 60 yards, even further? Or is it a mentality thing in some of these counties where lads play more like individuals?
Well, it's like this. If you looked at Limerick in 2017, you wouldn't have thought, "Oh, look how creative they are! Look how fluid they are! Look how good they are on the ball." But they'd obviously been trying to develop some sort of a game plan, a kind of a possession game. And then when we saw the fruits of that a year later, you're kind of thinking, Jesus, Sean Finn is so good on the ball coming out. He's almost an attacking player, a cornerback. Richie English the same. I remember a highlights package was put together by the Sunday game after one of the Limerick games, maybe mid-Munster championship, and it was just like they compared, I think, the year before or a couple of years previous and that year, and it was like Richie English wasn't striking the ball 100 yards anymore. He was striking the ball 40 or 50 yards, or he was putting it into areas. They were creating, and I think it's more of a style, or whatever style of player, a tactic you're going to utilise. Do you want your cornerbacks to horse ball down the field and get a roar from the crowd, or do you want them to try and play the ball through the hand? And it's higher risk, it's also higher skill, but if you can put it together, chances are you're going to have a lot more attacks, you're going to have a lot more chances. Like Limerick, me and you talked about earlier on this year, like Limerick creates some amount of chances. Like they do, they put together some amount of chances. You're operating at maybe 30 to 35 chances on a bad day, whereas some other teams are only creating maybe 20 to 25 on a good day.
Yeah, and I remember last year, the 2019 league, I did a piece on Clare and the amount of wides they were hitting and missed chances, and I just happened to be asked then on the radio at half time of their next game. It was in Ennis. I can't exactly remember who it was against. Well, are they squandering much today? And they were just hitting ridiculous shots from distance all the time. And I think it just, you're going to have more creators if you don't have lads shooting from distance. If you have lads who are willing to give that extra pass, like Limerick are a perfect example. Like you've already mentioned them. Every player in the backline is willing to puck a ball to Keane Lynch, even if he has a man up his backside, and they trust Keane Lynch to get the ball, turn and do something with it. Like I think Will O'Donoghue is a crucial link in the chain, because he'll often take possession, turn, draw a man, give it off for the likes of Keane Lynch to then, find that pass wherever it might be. Declan Hannon is someone who is often paired up nicely with Keane Lynch, and between them they work the ball out. Funnily enough, we were kind of talking through, and Darragh O'Donovan, we were talking through the Limerick team, the amount of creators they have, but Diarmuid Burns, who can of course deliver the ball, when the ball gets to him, he's often actually looking for the score, because anywhere from the 45 out he's a threat.
Yeah, he's usually looking to open his shoulders. We're looking back at the highlights of the Patrick's Well game, the club game last weekend, and you're kind of thinking that's a typical Diarmuid Burns kind of point. He's getting the ball on the front foot and trying to put it over for maybe his own 45 or his own 65. But I definitely think it's interesting. I think Will O'Donoghue's a good one there, because I think he's almost like a case study of how this best creator, there's differences in this best creator. There's one guy who can, tread a ball through a needle and play this unbelievable pass. Then there's this other guy, and I think Will O'Donoghue falls into that. It's almost like the best. He does a lot of the donkey work to create an opportunity. So, for example, Will O'Donoghue would get in, win a ball, do a lot of the hard work, then he'd pass it out. He's creating to some extent. Then you have the likes of a TJ Reid who could do unbelievable things on the ball, but he's creating by winning puckouts. He's creating by winning that initial ball and getting it out. Johnny Glynn, I think, from Galway would come in under that category as well. Like, what was Galway's main tactic in 2018? Get the ball to Johnny Glynn, because he would create something or he would make something happen, which he did. And even in the All-Ireland semi-final replay against Clare, when they put that ball on the edge of the square, they thought he'd be able to make something happen, and he did. So there's a different type of a creator. I'd say John Donnelly would be someone maybe that mixes between the two, someone who wins a dirty ball, but his hands are unbelievable. He's really, really good when he gets the ball as well. So he can spray those kind of stick passes, but he can do kind of that donkey work as well. And I think that's kind of, there's differences between a creator just like doing all the fancy things and putting the ball over the top like David Beckham would, and someone who's doing the donkey work to start a chance.
Yeah, I think Brick Walsh, for the couple of years he was in the forward line, would definitely be one of those creative forwards who doesn't do anything necessarily tasty. And we've been talking about Limerick an awful lot, and beforehand we were trying to think who at club level would have creators. And we were thinking that Limerick have a team more or less of creators, and aren't Ballygunner quite similar? Obviously they haven't gone on to win the All-Ireland and probably should have won more at club level, but pretty much every one of their players wants to spray it around. And even in the 2020 county final against Passage, they just cut them open because everyone was comfortable on the ball, everyone was looking to find the right man in the right place, and they had a load of lads who could deliver it, so they would definitely be up there. What about the one?
I think Ballygunner's an interesting one as well, and Limerick fall in the same category. I think you have to have your side well conditioned to play that style of play that they do. Like, if you look at the Limerick lads, they're unbelievably well conditioned, unbelievably mobile, they're all fast and pacey. Ballygunner are the same. It's just something that's, you mix conditioning and you mix skill together. And like, you look at that county final, Ballygunner put up a huge score, but they could have scored another 10 or 15 points. They're creating that kind of volume of chances, like a Limerick side are. And I just think it's a really, really interesting way to play, where you try and have everyone as a creator.
Yeah, is that one of Liam Cahill's challenges, to find more creators with Waterford? Because we go through the team, I was thinking, well, maybe Stephen Bennett in the full forward line, but am I sort of looking with rose-tinted glasses at that thing he did with the under-21s where he flicked the ball back behind himself and ended up with a score? Because the more we went through it, we were like, well, Jamie Barron, maybe you could probably make a case for him, all right, like just all the magic he does, and I suppose he does set up a certain amount of scores, but he'd take on plenty of them himself. Stephen O'Keefe was the one we landed on. He's always available. He has a razor-like puck of the ball. He's probably the closest we could land on.
Yeah, no, he probably was, and it just kind of shows you as well, when you go down through, a lot of the goalkeepers at county level are creators now. Gone is the big long puck up the field. You don't see that many lads at county level. A lot of them were using the cool text there for a while because it was all about distance. It's not about that anymore. It's about accuracy. It's about being able to put balls into certain areas. It's about being able to start an attack as well. We're talking about goalkeepers. Stephen O'Keefe in Waterford would definitely stand out. Anthony Nash would definitely be another one in Cork as well, just because he's like, they look at it, and Donald probably started it. When that ball went wide, they thought, okay, we're going to have the ball in our hands, 30 maybe to 35 times in a game. Let's not give it away. And Nash definitely brought that kind of trend on to another level, where they think, okay, we're in possession here. He's going to be able to do something with it for us. And he's definitely a creator. I think when Limerick won the All-Ireland in 2018, Nicky Quaid was the same as well. He was creating. How many points did they get, or scores did they get from puckouts where he was putting balls into areas? Yeah, don't get me wrong, the midfielder and the half forward is doing a massive amount of work, but they know that the creator is going to put the ball where they want to. I feel like saying the creator, it's almost like the episode of The Simpsons where they were talking about the leader. It's like we have the creator as like this mythical figure. But I definitely think goalkeepers need to have that within their arsenal now. If they can create, like, if you can't give sharp puckouts, if you can't hit a man from 80 yards, you won't be playing goals on any sort of a top level club or county team anymore.
Yeah, like, so TJ Reid is obviously a creator. I mean, he's in every one of these discussions we have about best whatever, he's always up there at the top end of the discussion. So it's almost like you take for granted. Well, obviously he is. We don't really need to discuss it. But the amount of ways he can do it, whether it's a hand pass, a stick pass. I think last year of being in at one of the Ballyhale games, I can't remember, was it the county final, but he's there sprinting through. He's probably 45 yards out, and he's able to puck a ball on the run to one of his inside forwards to knock it in for a goal. Colin Fennelly, batter and ram. He often goes for his own score, and rightly so, because he's so close to goal, and how do you stop him? But I feel like he does set up scores too, and there is room for the batter and ram to do that. Bonner Maher, I suppose, for years soloing through and popping it off to somebody. Probably, I don't know if it happens quite as much anymore. Then you think Seamus Harnedy, ball winner, should he be setting up more? I mean, that was the thing with Cork. Outside Anthony Nash, similar with Watford and their goalkeeper, we really, really struggled to name someone who you think is a regular creator. And when you think of the skill set of some of these Cork players, is this probably why? I mean, you were talking about how they have too many, finishers and maybe not enough creators, and we kind of came around to that Zinedine Zidane quote about Claude Makélélé, the defensive midfielder. This was during the era when Real Madrid were just signing star forward after star forward and not really worrying about, the guys who would set up the play or the guys who would protect the back. And Zidane's quote was, why put another layer of gold paint on the Bentley when you're losing the entire engine? And maybe that is kind of Cork's problem in a way, that they don't have enough lads trying to do the other stuff.
They probably have all the lads you'd want to have ball in hand, but not enough players to get the ball to their hand, if you know what I mean. This is why I don't know, I'd often fall out with lads when you're picking a best 15 team, because they go with 6 forwards that are, probably the free taker on their team and the chief score getter. And I'm just thinking, yeah, that's grand, but they wouldn't work together.
That's a fantasy team. That's a fantasy team designed to get the most points.
Exactly, yeah. So if I was putting together a forward line, I would want at least probably 2 of those Bonner Maher style players. One in probably both actually in the half forward line, and then you can kind of put your almost like your flair players around them. But if you can't win the ball and create that opportunity for the really good player, there's almost no point in having them. So if you look at the Cork All-Ireland quarter final last year, Alan Cadigan was going to town, Patrick Horgan was going to town, but they didn't have that kind of ingenuity maybe out the pitch to be able to actually get them the ball when they were really, really struggling. So I just think they have too many finishers and not enough creators. And as you said off camera before we started, when you go down through these best of categories and you go down through certain counties, and I would say probably Clare and Cork and probably Dublin would be the 3 of the most obvious ones, you kind of maybe realise some of their deficiencies and why they're not, competing really, really regularly at All-Ireland level, and why they're not deemed as, All-Ireland, really serious All-Ireland contenders every year.
Yeah, Kevin Foley then in Wexford, he's probably their chief creator. I think Sean Murphy, who was the sweeper before that, and we've talked about Colin Gavin, who's been a sweeper, Sean Moran, who's been a sweeper with Dublin. A lot of it comes back to, we know they have the skill set to be creator, but funnily enough, the creator is operating on their own D. So to some degree, that's brilliant, and you can set up the attacks, but you're almost too far away from goal to set it up in the most dangerous part of the pitch, which is inside the 14. It's very hard to get the ball from one end to the other and the defence not get back in time.
Yeah, it's an interesting one that you would bring your most creative player back there, but that's a total kind of style shift almost. And that's since Davey came in. Sean Murphy has been back there, as you said. Maybe that went a bit redundant in 2018, so they tried to do something completely different. It can be a strange one if Kevin Foley is trying to create, we'll say, at centre forward, and he has his back to the play. That's a lot different than trying to create a sweeper when he has, he's facing the play the whole time. And in fairness, they're very smart in the way they do it with him, and even with some other players as well, that when you have a player like that, sometimes lads have to realise, okay, this guy is just better on the ball than I am. Get the ball to him. He will make things happen. A lot of the time at club level, you see it's, I don't know, is it a selfishness or everybody wanting to do their own, trying to get their own score or whatever, but unless it's beaten into a team, to get the ball to this guy's going to get the ball. You find other lads doing little bits and pieces, and maybe the wrong lad is striking the ball. Whereas with Wexford, they know that he's going to be there. He has a bit of freedom to get forward. He has loads of freedom to get forward, actually. And he creates loads of different attacks. He creates score for himself. He creates overlaps. So I would say he's definitely their best creator, and it just kind of shows you, the more than we talked about the goalkeepers and the more than we talked about Limerick's kind of fluidity and the cornerback starting attacks, the fact that your sweeper will be your focal point of creativity is definitely, like, you couldn't have seen that coming 10 years ago. And I think it's a really, really interesting development, in fairness.
Yeah, Kevin Foley was involved in that unbelievable under-21 goal against Offaly a few years ago, so you kind of think Wexford would have more consistent creators if they can produce that kind of thing. And obviously he's developing that role, evolving the role to become more of an attacking thing, whereas other sweepers like Tadhg de Burka, it's rarely you'd see him move too far forward with the ball, but who knows, maybe that'll change under Liam Cahill. What about Tipperary?
It's on that chain as well. I think it's very, very important with coaching as well, that you're not coaching lads too rigidly. Like some of the things that you see the best creators doing in games, the likes of Kevin Foley and that, it's the sort of thing that comes very natural to them, and I'd have a small bit of a fear that some of that creativity is being coached our guys. You know, Eamon Dunphy always talked about with Wesley Houlihan, street footballer, you know, all this kind of instincts that he had. And it's the poking around on streets, it's the one touch at training, it's young lads doing all these little flicks and touches. Like, it's those little small little things, and guys, it's the creators are able to do things that other guys wouldn't think of doing. Yeah. And you know, do you ever play in a match and there's a guy gets a ball and you're like, I never even saw that pass. I didn't how did he? I didn't even see that ball. And I think it's important that kind of thing isn't coached our guys, because when you get to the really, really high level, it's those little small little things. How often have we said, no one else would have tried that? No one, like stuff that Noel McGrath would do, stuff that Keane Lynch would do at Limerick as well. And it's very, very important that while you are coaching to maybe some sort of a system, that these guys that are just special talents, you kind of have to let them do their thing at times as well. You can't be shackling them with you know, straitjackets or anything like that. Let them do, if they have that within their arsenal, let them do it.
Yeah, it's definitely a fair point, the whole street hurling thing, and the fact that you're out there for hours with other friends, whether you're camogie, hurling, whatever, from a young age, that you learn all these skills and you sort of develop the confidence to try something ridiculous. I think Bubbles O'Dwyer at times, he has a creator in him too, and I mentioned TJ Reid with that stick pass on the run to someone almost directly in front of him. I have a memory of probably 2017, 2018 when Tipperary played Clare down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, when that was being opened, of him doing a stick pass like that to possibly Seamus Callan, who may have driven it over the bar. But in Tipperary and in Galway, there's probably a couple of nice creators there, but are we still looking at Noel McGrath, Ronan Maher, and then on the Galway side probably Davy Burke, Joe Canning? Because like, since Canning went from 14 out to 11, that obviously was one of the big steps that allowed Galway to go on and win that All-Ireland.
Yeah, I think Ronan Maher is a great example, because like, as a defender, he's the ability to strike a ball 100 yards on the run. He's ability to create from sidelines. He's the ability to create anyway. But I was looking at Tipperary last year, league and championship, before he had to go back full back in particular. Like, he was the outlet ball in the half back line. Cornerbacks were trying to get the ball to him because they knew he was going to put it in a good position for a forward. He knew, like, with a little flick of the wrist, this amazing kind of wrist action that he has is unbelievable. He can set up attacks from the full back line nearly. And then you're looking at Noel McGrath as well. Like, I think when Sheedy came back in, they were very, very clever. They knew what they had in a creator, the likes of Ronan Maher and Noel McGrath. And the edict was, you know, we have workers, you do the hard work, but you try and get the ball to these guys. We're increasing our chances of creating a scoring opportunity, or scoring, or them scoring themselves by getting the ball to them, and they did. And I think what you mentioned about Canning is very, very interesting in Galway. He came out to centre forward, and a really, really deep line centre forward. And him and David Burke have this kind of almost like a telepathic relationship. Even from when Canning was inside full forward, Burke used to deliver unbelievable ball inside to him, diagonal ball that would almost take the full back out of match. And when Canning came out centre forward, he was creating out there, but he was also, I think, and you said it off air, he was kind of a decoy as well. He's almost a decoy creator, because lads think that the ball is going to be going to him the whole time. The centre back or the midfielder is forced to push up on him, and then David Burke can deliver a right good ball in and taking the centre back out of play. So Canning was kind of a creator both on and off the ball, which I think is an interesting tactic too.
Yeah, and of course there's that 2015 point that he set up for Shane Maloney from deep in that All-Ireland semi-final against Tipperary. I wanted to mention Paul Shields, Shorty as he's known as, from Antrim and Dunloy, because even just watched him in the county final recently against Lochgiel, that just reminded me of what a good creator he is. And by that I mean just use of the ball is really, really good and smart all the time, sitting at the base of the midfield and just being able to set up attacks. So I think he's definitely worth mentioning. And like anyone out there, if you think there's somebody that we're not mentioning, whether it's a team outside the Liam McCarthy level, whether it's someone on a club team as well, let us know, because there's always going to be one or two that slip between the net. But we're going to have to make our decision here. Who for you is the number one?
Well, it's funny, right? And we had this debate about like most skillful hurler recently, and I can't remember who it was, but someone made a really, really valid point after, where they were talking about Cian Lynch, and it was, the point they made was it a pointless skill, or was it like shall we say a pointed skill? Was it a pointless skill where it was something that you were doing and it was an unbelievable piece of skill, but there mightn't necessarily be something coming out of it? Or was it a piece of skill like what TJ Reid does a lot of time, where it's an unbelievable piece of skill and something always seems to come of it? It's not a flick or anything like that, but it's some sort of a brilliant piece of skill where you're creating a chance. And I think the creator thing here is interesting in that there are different types of creators. I think there's the more kind of as I said, a John Donnelly, Johnny Glynn style of creator, where it's win and ball, a Bonner Maher as well, and then you mix that with the kind of silk as well. So you have to have a silk and substance, and I think when you put the two of them together, someone like Noel McGrath probably ticks all those boxes, because he's able to, like, remember the ball over the top against Laois last year for Callan's goal, absolutely unbelievable. I think I'd love to go back through it. It would take God knows how long to do it, but I'd love to see his retention rates from when he strikes the ball or when he gives a pass. Like, his retention rates are so high. I don't ever recall saying, "Jeez, Noel McGrath gave a bad ball there," or a bad pass by Noel McGrath. It just doesn't happen. And I think for the percentage of his balls that go to different lads and go to different people, I'd say it's absolutely off the charts. And I think he also has that ability to kill you from out the field, where you think, don't get, you might sit back or something like that because he's going to deliver a ball in, and then he can kill you from 100 yards himself. I think when you put the whole total package together, I think Noel McGrath probably has all of that. But there are different types of creators, and I think it was definitely important to recognise the other guys that might be winning puckouts as well. But I think if you're talking about creating opportunities and someone being the fulcrum of their team, I'd say Noel McGrath probably edges it for me.
And it's no surprise that the counties that we're talking about are the ones that are going to be challenging for an All-Ireland regularly. So Tipperary, like you've mentioned, Noel McGrath, maybe Ronan Maher, Kilkenny.
It's all about creating chances, Shane. That's the teams that create, like the teams that have the lads that can do that bit of brilliance, that create goals and give yourself an opportunity to hit 30 points in a game. Those are the teams that are going to be winning, bar to have an unbelievably off day.
Well,
so I think you're definitely,
Yeah, so managers, this is the sort of thing that maybe is worth analysing. Can I get more creators on the field, or can I get more players to think like creators? So, TJ Reid then in Kilkenny, and obviously you've named a couple more, John Donnelly being one, Richie Hogan has created over the years. Lots of players like that potentially can, and if they could develop that with a few more, who's to say that Kilkenny couldn't win All-Ireland again? Like you've mentioned Joe Canning and Davy Burke, and in Limerick, the fact that most of the team, certainly from the back line to midfield, most of that team probably is well capable of creating. But I think for, like, Cian Lynch has to be at the very, very top end of this, TJ Reid at the very, very top end of this. But I do think I'd agree with you. Normally we don't agree on who would be our number one in one of these best series with 65 hurls, but I'm going to go with Noel McGrath as well. You can put the ball into your mouth from 100 yards, and if you have that in your team and good forwards to go with it, you're generally going to win a lot of games. So I think for once we've agreed.
I thought for a minute there you were going to give it to John Kiley. Like John Kiley was going to get it, like Brian Cody got the man of the match in the 2008 All-Ireland final.
No, there's no cop-outs around here. You got to pick someone. You got to nail your colours to the mast.
There's an awful lot of creators there, and they're the players. Without being smart, the creator is the player that we all aspire to be, but there's only certain players that can do that type of thing.
Okay, that's it for our 65hurls.com latest show in the best series. Michael, we'll chat again.
Thanks a million, Jen.